This is listener-supported community radio, KAAD-LP 103.5 on your FM dial, Sonora, California, and streaming on www.kaad-lp.org. I'm Wendy Ledger with the Golden Nuggets of the Motherlode, brought to you by the Sonora Writers Group and Tuolumne County Arts. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you to local writer Glenn Ditman. So Glenn was born in Santa Clara, California. He grew up in the coastal town of Half Moon Bay. After the death of his father, he and his mother moved to Modesto, where Glenn lived for 26 years. He has a bachelor's degree in social science, as well as an associate's degree in computer-aided drafting and a teaching credential. Glenn currently works as a long-term substitute teacher aide at Columbia Elementary School in Columbia, California. He has published 2 books, one, A Brief History of the Town of Riverbank, California, published by Arcadia Press, and the other, a collection of short children's stories called Glenn Allen's Anthology, published through CreateSpace. Both are available on Amazon and locally at Mountain Bookstore, Here's the Scoop, and Columbia Booksellers. Glenn is currently working on a children's book called KAAD-LP, which will be out later this year, and a novel about the life of his Aunt Ellen Miller, who lived in the area, which will also hopefully be published later this year. Thank you, Glenn, for being here with us.
Thank you, Wendy.
So, when did you first know that you wanted to be a writer?
Oh my goodness. Way back when I was in grade school. Probably like around 2nd grade. Because, well, you know how when you're a kid, your teachers give you spelling assignments and they tell you, put your spelling words in the story, right?
Okay.
So I would put my spelling words into the stories and my teachers were enthralled by the stories that I came up with. You know, Glenn has a great imagination and a good sense of humor. And so, yeah, that's probably when I first had the inclination to do that.
So are there writers that you love who have inspired you and influenced your work?
There are so many because I love to read. You know, one thing my doctor comments on is every time I see him, I've got a book in my hand. So I would say for humor, probably Mark Twain.
Yes.
For horror suspense, probably Stephen King. All sorts of historical fiction writers. F. Scott Fitzgerald. I could go down the list of classical authors and different people.
That's wonderful. Okay, just a couple questions. Favorite king?
Oh, goodness. That's a tough one. I can't think right now. There are so many.
I think mine is probably Bag of Bones.
Oh, yeah. That one is good. Definitely a good one.
Yeah. So, in a certain historical era, or do you like just reading all kinds of history?
I like reading all kinds of history. I've read different ones by Michener, Rutherford, and they will start way back in time, way back, like 1000 BC or something like that, and come up to the modern day. And I love the flow of them and how he works them together, because he may have something in the beginning that doesn't really get resolved until almost the very end.
Yeah, that always fascinated me as a kid. Because I was I was a voracious reader, and I also kind of read above my level. I just loved to read. Did you do that too? And did you love, I love big, fat paperback books. And so Michener was just like primo, because it was, I would go to, this totally dates me, but I would go to the grocery store and they would have those, they would sell paperbacks right before you went.
Those turnstile things, right? Whatever you call those.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Little carousels.
Yes,
I'd be like, another Michener. Yeah, and it starts with the dinosaurs. This is so cool. Yeah.
The only problem that I have is that I can pick a book up years after I've read it and start off, and the whole thing will come to my mind. Kind of like a photographic memory.
Are you a slow reader or a fast reader?
I'm way too fast.
And you still
I devour
remember
books. Yes.
Wow. Because I'm a fast reader, and then I generally cannot remember. But now I listen to audiobooks rather than read, and now I can remember more, have more of an impression of what has occurred. Yeah. But I know what you're talking about, though. about bringing a book along with you. Because I always did that as a kid. I always had to have a book in the car or book wherever I went. Now, usually I have a book on my phone or something, or an audio book on my phone or something like that. But I always have to have a book with me too.
Yep.
So now you work as a teacher.
Yes.
Here in Columbia. So are there ways that your writing has influenced your teaching?
Yeah, I would say it has, because even recently, working with the special ed students that I do, they each month or so, they have a story or a theme that they have to complete. So that has influenced that, because now I can go into that and I can correct their works, at least somewhat, forget how to, like, for instance, when you're doing quotations, I always get mixed up on where the comma goes in that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think everybody probably
error.
does.
Yeah, it's a common error.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you get what I'm saying. I can help the students with their writing and, correcting it.
And how old are the students that you're working with?
3rd through 8th grade.
Wow. It's a really interesting ages.
Yeah.
And I know something about you in that you are a person who approaches creative things with gusto.
Thank you.
I've seen that in your readings on Third Friday, and you were kind enough to be a volunteer for the Oddfellows this year at the cemetery tour, and you acted out one of the characters.
Yes.
So do you bring that into the classroom? Do you do that kind of stuff, characters and stuff?
To some extent. I think that one of the things that students love about me the most is that I do voices.
Yes.
So they love those. What I do is I make a deal with them. I tell them, if you guys are really good for me, then my silly voices can come out. If not, then my mean voice has to come out.
Okay.
But yeah, I do go into different characters and the kids love it.
Yeah, I bet you're a really great teacher.
I try to be.
Have you had teachers in your life that have inspired you?
Oh, most definitely. My 4th grade teacher was very influential in my life. Not only did she teach me during the week, she was at my church on Sundays and played the piano.
Okay.
So many teachers come to mind. There was a gentleman named Joe Catterin in high school, and he taught history class. And he made the history come to life. Literally, one time he walked off the dimensions of a cabin in Jamestown, Virginia, and told us this is where his stuff would be, referring to, I think it was John Smith, So, yeah, I've had all kinds of fascinating teachers.
I remember as a child seeing my teacher out in the outside world. And the first time that happened, it was like so shocking to me.
Yeah, they have a life outside school. Yes.
Like the first time you saw your teacher playing the piano in the church, was it like, whoa?
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah. I was like, oh, wow.
So I wanted to talk more specifically about your writing. So you first wrote a book on Riverbank, California.
Yes.
What inspired you to write that book?
Well, 2 of my great-grandfathers were considered founders of the town. Great-grandpa Ditman had a apartment complex. Well, I don't know if you could say complex, but an apartment house there. It originally started out as a railroad hotel where all the big people in the railroad would stay. And then it became pretty much a normal apartment complex.
Okay, so when was this?
Oh, gosh, that would have been way back in 1913 when they built the apartment complex. And then I had another great-grandfather, Elias Harris, who was a prominent businessman in the town. He ran a photo studio down there.
Oh, wow.
So then, 2 families met, and that's where my grandparents came together and all that.
Okay, so geography is not my forte. So I have no idea where Riverbank is. Where is it?
Okay, it's probably about half hour east of Modesto.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's about maybe an hour's drive from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you go and visit it?
Not that often. I am actually a member of the Historical Society down there. So I know they have like a membership meeting coming up next month. So I'll probably go to that. And then I'll participate in different things throughout the year, different fundraising events.
And what does the town look like now?
Very, very different from what it was when I was a kid. Because I did have an uncle that lived there too, was a locksmith. Much bigger, more shopping areas. there's a big theater area down there now. So yeah, and it's extremely different from what it was when my aunt lived down there, who I have been writing about.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah. And when you wrote that book, like, how did you do the research for it? How did you do it?
Well, there was a woman at the museum who was trying to do some of the research and write one of those books.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of got together with her and worked with her and the museum, with different townspeople, older residents of the area. So then I gathered information.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was accurate, some of it wasn't. You kind of take that risk when you do a book like that, I guess, So some people kind of give me back and say, no, that's not right. Sorry. So,
right. That's what I heard. That's what one of the residents here told me.
yeah, I can't help it.
That's really funny. So you also write children's books.
Yes.
Glenn Allen's Anthology
Yes.
and the upcoming KAAD-LP.
Yes.
So why do you like to write for children?
It's fun. I don't know how to explain it, but they just sort of come sometimes upon me. Like recently I've got an idea for twisting the tale of Little Red Riding Hood.
Okay.
And reversing it and making it where the wolf is the one who is doing the activity. And I'm thinking of calling it Little Gray Wolfie Tale.
Okay.
So just jokes like that and puns and pulls on things is what I love to do.
Yeah. And anything about fairy tales in general that you really like? They're great stories.
Yes, they are. And I would say, again, probably reworking them, making them a little bit different, a little bit unexpected.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And cats. KAAD-LP.
Yes.
Do you have pets at home?
Not currently. When I was a kid, I had all kinds of animals in the house. My parents spoiled me and my brother rotten. Hamsters, rabbits, cats, dogs, fish, frogs,
Sounds like paradise.
Yeah, it was. It was a kid's paradise, basically. Yes.
Yes. So, and finally, you have a novel that you're working on now.
Yes.
You mentioned her already, your Aunt Ellen.
Yes.
So could you tell us a little bit about her and why you want to write this book about her?
Well, she gave me a great gift a while back. She started to rewrite her autobiography. And so she handed me this incomplete autobiography and told me, do what you want with this. Keep it as a family history, turn it into a novel, do what you want. And so I took it and started to write a novel about her life. And fortunately, she was able to see some of it. She passed away a couple of years ago in this March, but she liked what she saw. And I'm having so much fun writing about her life and her adventures down in the Riverbank, Oakdale area, as well as up here.
So, can you give us a little bit of spoilers? Like, what was she like as a person? Was she really important to you when you were growing up? And what was she like?
Well,
what kind of adventures?
I remember one time at one of our meetings, I believe it was Matt Peller, who asked me what one word describes your aunt. The one word that comes to mind is resilience. My aunt had a lot of difficulty growing up as a child. She had a speech impediment. Her mother was leaning toward the emotionally abusive side, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So she had all of those challenges and she overcame all of those things when she was growing up.
And you must have been really important to her. She gave you her autobiography. She trusted you with that. Yeah,
I guess you could say, I mean, my family would probably groan, but I would say she's kind of, I think me and my brother were kind of like the sons that she didn't have. She had all girls. She had 3 girls, so she never had a son of her own. So. Yeah. You want to say anything about her adventures? Wow, there are so many. I think one that comes to mind the most is there's a part of the book where it's just after my father was born, actually, and she goes to cross the railroad tracks in Riverbank. Because she lived on what would that have been? The western side of the tracks. So she had to cross the tracks to go to school. So they were forbidden to cross it in certain areas and forbidden to go up on a highway viaduct that was there. Well, the one day the freight train was stuck right where they crossed. And so they had no choice but to go up on the highway viaduct. And so I kind of made it out. She talks to her friends that she goes to school with. And it's like, well, Ellen, if we do that, we'll get in trouble, Well, okay, if we wait for the train, we're going to be late. We'll get all out that way. So what choice do we have? So they went up on the highway viaduct, and just as they were going on the viaduct, the train starts off, and the whistle blows right underneath them. They drop their lunches, which go skittering downhill and under the viaduct and go running across, So, and then they have the thing of being late for school, no lunch, So yeah.
And so you made a decision. Well, your aunt was kind enough to say that you could do whatever you wanted to with her material.
Yes.
And you said, I am going to make it into a novel.
Yes.
And why was that important to you to do it that way? Is it just more fun?
Well, I really wanted to tell her story in a unique way, I think. And, the fact that she said, turn it into a novel, I think she had read some of what I had done previously with the history book that I did, with some of my short stories. So she knew what I was capable of doing. Yes. And I'm so glad that she trusted me that way and just basically told me, go for it.
Yeah.
So.
That's wonderful. So why don't you go for it right now and share some of your work with us?
Okay. I do have a Glenn Allen's Anthology here, so I can read the part of the second story at least in here, because I know I read the first one with Jill a while back.
Yeah.
So the second one is a morality tale called How the Mockingbird Lost Its Song. So long ago, on the 5th day of creation of the world, God made each and every bird that flies in the heights of the air. On that day, the Lord spoke to each and every songbird, saying, tomorrow I'm going to make my final creation, man. He will be at the top of all that I have made. He will be over all things, great and small, and tomorrow, after he is made, all of the animals I formed will be brought before him to be named. I will send an angel by in the garden this afternoon to give each of you a song to be sung before he gives you your name. So make sure to practice well to make a good impression on him. Later in the afternoon, the angel came by and delivered the songs. One of the birds in the garden had beautiful plumage, the prettiest of any of the birds the Lord God had created. Its wings were of silver, and its chest and stomach had an array of feathers that rivaled those of the hummingbird, and its tail was long and more magnificent than even that of the peacock. When the angel gave it its song, it chirped with joy over its obvious beauty. The song was so melodic, so beautiful, that the bird knew the man that was to be formed could only fall in love with the sound of it, and give the bird a name of honor and distinction. The male became vain and said to its mate, let us go and see what our neighbors are up to, and view their plumage and their songs. We have nothing to worry about, as the Lord has blessed us with such lovely plumage and a song that cannot compare to any other birds. You are sure we should not stay and practice our song, my dear? Said his mate. I mean, we should make time to learn it, don't you think? Bah, it's easy, and will take no time at all. Besides, I know we both have lovely voices. We are truly blessed above all other birds, trust me. Well, how can I resist such flattery, my dear? If you insist, then off we shall go. So away the two vain birds went into the garden, and soon came upon a couple of white birds with a crest on their heads. They listened to the white bird's song and began to make fun of them, saying, so plain, so boring, why bother with a song? Singing here and singing there, no rest the whole day long. For we with our colors are most beautiful to see. A great name shall we get, and a loser's name to thee. The white birds became incensed with anger and began to boil. The color of plumage went from white to red. When they were named the following day, Adam would name them for the color of their anger, and forever they would be known as cardinals. The two vain birds journeyed on until they came to another pair of birds, these being a common gray. Whistling and tweeting, these birds too were in the business of practicing for the following day. Suddenly, they too were interrupted by the vain birds, who said, Gray bird, why do you try tweeting and warbling up to the sky? Our plumage is better by far than yours. How utterly dreadful, and oh, what bores. Go away, get out of here. You have no business here, shouted the gray birds. Go practice your own song. And so burnt were they by their own anger that they turned black and the next day Adam called them blackbirds. On it went in the garden, with the vain birds visiting and making fun of other birds, one pair becoming sad and turning blue, and thus being called bluebirds. Soon the offended birds spread the news throughout the garden of the vain birds' behavior. Finally, a large group of the birds joined together to drive them away. Now, while the naughty birds were out making fun of their neighbors, a wind came up in the garden and gently blew through it. So busy were the vain birds in making fun of their neighbors that they did not even notice it stirring. The wind blew a little more powerfully. No one was in the vain bird's nest to see the wind gently tug on the music sheet that had been left, and no one saw the wind lift the music up and blow it away. The music was blown on the ground and became dirty and torn as it blew along. The wind stirred up more powerfully and lifted the sheet into the air and towards the river that flowed through Eden. No one saw the music land upon the waters, and no one knew when it disintegrated and became as nothing. When they were done visiting the other birds, the two vain birds returned to their own nest in order to practice and get ready to be named the following day. But the music was gone. "Where did you put it, wife? Where is it? Where is the music that was left us?" "I didn't do anything with it," the female said. "It was your bright idea to leave it alone where anyone could get to it." "It's stolen," cried her mate. "Another bird took it because they were jealous. We must find it." So they went around and tried to ask, but the birds they had made fun of would not talk to them, and had spread the word to the other birds in the garden regarding their rude behavior. No one wanted to help the vain and naughty birds. They looked everywhere throughout the evening, but still couldn't find the song. Their worries and fears increased, and they knew not what to do. What would the Lord say when he found out the song was lost? What name would they be given without it? As they worried and worried, their beautiful plumage began to fall off. The silver on their wings and back became a dull gray, and the jewel-like feathers on their chest and stomachs turned white. The luxurious tail feathers fell off, and left the birds dull and unremarkable. Not knowing their own song and believing that someone else had stolen it, they began to sing the songs of other birds, trying desperately to find their own. Throughout the night they sang and sang anything they could think of, until in the morning they were exhausted and haggard. When it came time for the presentation of the birds the following day, the Lord noticed that two of the birds were missing. The Lord, knowing everything, already knew what had occurred, and was waiting patiently. Finally, the two now not so proud birds arrived and began to sing. "That is not your song," said the Lord. "That is the nightingale's song, not yours." The birds tried again. "No, that is not your song either. That song belongs to the wren," said the Lord. Again and again the vain birds tried and sang the songs of other birds. "What birds are you?" asked the Lord. "I do not recognize your plumage, and you do not seem to know your own song. How then shall Adam name you?" The other birds knew who they were and spoke up, telling both the Lord and Adam about how they had made fun of so many other birds and then lost their plumage worrying through the night. "Is this true?" asked the Lord. "Yes, all of it, we are sorry to say." "How again shall you be named after you have done this? You have brushed off the gift I gave you and treated it as nothing. How then shall I treat you?" The birds trembled in fear, for this was the Lord, the one who had made them and who could unmake them. Just then Adam whispered in the Lord's ear. "Yes," he said, "that would be fitting. Adam has come up with a name for you regardless of your lost plumage and forgotten song." The vain birds lifted up their heads, expecting some regal name to come forth. Instead, the Lord spoke thus. "Since you have made fun of the other birds in the garden and mocked their songs and their plumage, you will forever be known as mockingbirds. You will never find your song, no matter how hard you try and how long you sing. Forever you will sing in vain. Leave me." To this day, the mockingbird still tries to find its lost song, singing day and night in vain and desperation. Perhaps you have heard him yourself singing. Lately, he has even tried to imitate one of the sounds of men, believing that the sound of a car alarm is his lost song, stolen by men.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's so creative and fun and sad. I felt bad for the mockingbirds.
I know you do, don't you?
I was like,
and believe it or not, that came to me on a Saturday afternoon, and it took me about a half hour to write.
Okay. Were you like out in nature? Were you?
No, I was just at home. But I guess what it got me is living down in Modesto. I'd always heard the mockingbirds imitating the car alarms and going through the entire routine of what the car alarm sounded like.
That's really great.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful. So do you want to say anything about being a writer in this area? Being a local writer?
It is so much fun, and I love the support of our writers group, the Sonora Writers Group.
Yeah.
Because the criticism that I get is always constructive and it's never negative. So if there's anybody out there listening who's like, gosh, maybe I'd like to do that.
Right. So tell them, Glenn, what it's like. Like you go to a writing group, what happens? What do you do?
Well, typically what we do is we have from 4 to 8 pages of writing that we bring in, something that we're working on. And so then we go around in the group and everybody presents a little bit of what they're writing. And so you will read it out loud, which I know is intimidating. I was intimidated at first, but I had to overcome that. And finally, okay, I'm going to present something. So you present that and you make, what is it? I think it's like 10 or 12 copies for the group so that they can edit what you've done. So then after you're done reading, they will tell you, okay, you might want to think about changing this, or, like I mentioned earlier, the problem with the quotations.
Right.
I might say, okay, you need quotations here, don't need them there.
Right.
Whatever it might be. But it's always constructive. And I love what I get back from the group.
Yeah, that's right. Because people will hand out copies of things. And so you can like write notes and put your name on it and give it to you. And and then there's also events that the writers group do.
That's true too. And those are so much fun too. I've been downtown when the group has had their books on sale.
Yeah, second Saturday.
The second Saturday, we've got the readings at the Sonora Inn. And of course, our books are all over the place.
Third Friday.
So we do readings. Yes. Yeah, the third Fridays. And then we do readings at the stores every once in a while. And I love doing those.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we have some really nice people in the community, like Nan at Here's the Scoop.
Oh, yeah.
And I haven't met the woman at the Columbia Booksellers yet, but
Rosanna, I believe her name is. She's wonderful too.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
so,
it is.
Yeah, and I get to meet friends like you.
Yes.
So, do you have a writing routine?
Not really.
So is it just like inspiration strikes you?
That's pretty much when the bug strikes, when the muse is, as you call it, strikes. I go for a while and I kind of ruminate about what I'm doing and go back to it. For a while, when the novel that I'm working on with my aunt's story, I had a 6-month gap and I was stuck.
Yeah.
What do I do with this time period? Because it was during World War II, and from January to June, there wasn't a whole lot that happened in the war. I mean, there were battles and things, but there's no major battles listed. There's nothing for her to react to. So I'm like, what do I do? So finally I came up with some things to kind of fill in that time period.
Right.
Yeah.
And during times like that, do you go to the writers group feedback group? Or, the smaller group?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
So would you tell them then, like, I feel stuck? And
definitely I do. Yeah. And so sometimes they will throw back ideas. Why don't you do this or that? And, I love what Jill used to say when she was the president.
Right.
Okay, let's not write their stories for them, because we can't get carried away doing that, so. But yeah, the advice is always good.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you came today, Glenn.
Me too.
And talked with us. It's been really wonderful. So thank you very much. And thank you to our sponsors, the Sonora Writers Group and Tuolumne County Arts, and to the kind folks at KAAD-LP 103.5 FM, streaming at KAAD-LP.org. Bye for now.